Hello friendos and randos, welcome back to another video. I posted this tweet for fun and it blew the fuck up. So I guess today we are coping we're playing we're building a deck list for Red Green Law. So EB01 is out, of course. Law gets a few really good buffs in terms of Cavendish as well as Kid and Killer. The Shambles event is playable, but I think not the best. And Law is gonna get a big buff in Sakazuki being banned in 07 as well. So I'm just gonna quickly show you guys like the list that I played for a bit and what I think is pretty good to put in RG Law moving forward. Let's be real, the deck is going to still have a tough time as long as 4-cost Lucci exists, as long as RP Law is in the meta. Those are two really bad matchups in general for Red Green Law, but I still love the deck, I still want to cope, so we shall cope. And here, let's go through the list. Of course, we have the usual suspects, all of the different searches that we always run with Red Green Law. The three main engines, of course, will be Straw Hats with Nami Searcher. So 1-cost Nami. We'll also have Supernovas with Bonnie. And lastly, of course, in order to search for our Nami, we'll also have Dadan. So as usual, this is going to be the base of every Red Green Law list. Is going to be the standard that you kind of see. So we have these three main search engines. We have Google, Bing, and Yahoo. I'm so sorry. We have our three main search engines for Straw Hat, Supernova, and 1-cost red characters. And then it's good, of course, that Dadan looks for Nami as well, so it helps you to continue looping your searches together. So we'll talk a little bit about the individual pieces that go under each, and I think the kind of standard cards that you expect, and then from there we'll talk about the new additions and what make them really good. So it's not a Red Green Law list if you're not running, of course, the 5-cost blocker law. So of course we're gonna have that at 4 copies. So that goes over here under the Bonnie category. So Blocker Law is one of the bread and butter cards of the deck. It allows you to loop your searches, it allows you to play down higher value cards by bouncing 1-cost characters and playing up to a 3-cost on top of it. So you get an extra 2 Dawn off of it for free. On top of course your leader effect giving you up to 3 Dawns worth of value by playing 5 costs for only 2 Dawn. And also returning your searches to hand. So Red Green Law is really not the same deck if you're not running this card, so definitely get a playset of that. Next up, we're also running Restand Law. Of course, Restand Law is really good. It helps you restand any Supernova characters that you have. So of course, your Blocker Law is one of them. You can also restand himself. You can restand Rush Zoro and a few other characters that we're going to talk about later, especially the new additions that are going to be very, very key to the deck. So again, bread and butter of the deck is going to help you with pushing for a lot more damage and pressure. And one of the key things that this deck does really well is pushing pressure, being aggressive, allowing you to do many attacks in one turn. And some of the new key things that we've gotten to help you with that is, first off, we have the new 5-cost Cavendish. So this is the flagship art for it. So this is the 5-cost Cavendish new EB01 card. On play when attacking, if your leader is the Supernova type and you have no other Cavendish on your board, then you can restand 2 of your Rested Dawn. Restanding 2 of your Rested Dawn is really huge in this deck. I think this card opens up for a lot of new combos, and the fact that it's on play and when attacking, and not only that, but it's also not once per turn, means that when you're comboing this with Restand Law, you can get a lot of Dawn value in one turn. So for example, playing this down, attacking with it, and then after that standing it back up with Restand Law, and then attacking with it again, gives you 4 active Dawn in one turn, which is a crazy amount of value. Not only that, this allows you to do things such as having 2 5-costs down on the 6th Dawn turn. So example, going second, you play 2 1-costs, and then after that you play another 2 1-costs, or you can play a 2-cost and a 1-cost, and then on your 6th Dawn turn you play down Cavendish, and with Cavendish effect you can get 2 active Dawn and reset. You can Shambles in still while you have a full board. So it's a really strong card. Great addition to the deck. Really happy to have it here. And the other key addition I think is also the new 4-cost Kid and Killer. Kid and Killer, of course, I'm sure you're familiar with because it's been terrorizing people in RP Law, but I think it's really good in this deck as well, again because of Restand Law. So that's why, of course, we're still running Restand Law at 4 in this deck now. Kid Killer's effect is Rush, and when attacking, if your opponent has 2 life or less, then this character gains plus 2000. Again, this is not a once per turn effect, so if you're able to play this down when your opponent has 2 life, you can swing with it for 7, and I use Restand Law to set it back active, and the next time it swings, it gets an additional plus 2k, so it becomes a 9k attacker instead, which is really, really strong when it comes to just pushing for damage, as well as, again, getting the aggression in. Again, because this deck has generally no large attackers, having cards like Kid and Killer, which get a lot of value or become pretty large attackers even though they're pretty cheap for Dawn, is quite significant. And that's why we're running him in the deck. I am only running 2 copies because I feel like there isn't enough space for it, but if you wanted to up this up to 3 or 4 in trade for like Rasoro or some other cards, I think it's also pretty reasonable. Wrapping up the Supernova package, we're running still 2 copies of Beige. I like Beige as a 1-cost blocker. I think it helps to, again, fill the board. It's a 1-cost target that you can pick up off of Bonnie, because if your only searcher is Bonnie, sometimes you may struggle to fill your board up wide because you don't have that cheap option. So I like Beige in this slot. I think I used to like Killer a lot, the 2-cost version in OPO3 and OPO4, because I think back then, because Sakazuki wasn't a big thing, it's not as easy to remove, and it does give you that additional card draw if you have that, I guess, ability to let it stick on the board. But for now, I think Beige is better just because like Sakazuki exists, so it's most likely going to be collateral damage. So that's the core of the deck. The Supernova package is pretty basic. It's what you kind of expect in most Red Green Law decks. I think the Cavendish and Kid and Killer are really, really good buffs for the deck, but again, at the moment it's still pretty tough to run the deck in general. Let me cover the rest of the deck list. I think it's pretty standard as well. So under the Straw Hat package, we do have 4 of the 1-cost Chopper blocker. So Chopper, of course, look at this cute little guy. I really love this center art, and I really hope I can get 2 more of him pretty soon. The Chopper blocker is really good because of the fact that, again, it's 1 cost, it's red, it's a blocker, it's searchable off both Nami and Dadan. All of these things make it pretty good in terms of being able to protect your board, protect your HP, your life cards, trying to keep yourself healthy, and making sure that you keep a board healthy as well to, continue applying your pressure and aggro on your opponent's face. And with that said, of course, 2k counters are also really important for the deck. We're only running 10 because we're running a couple of extra blockers here in the 2 pages. But first off, we have the 2-cost Brook. His effect is, when on play, you may attach 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters or your leader. So again, this card is really good at helping you to push aggro. He's really good in combination with the Restand Law as well. He's also super strong if you can use him to combo onto your Cavendish, and then after that you shambles him out, because he basically gives you an additional 2 Dawn extra, and then shambosing just again gives you more Dawn off the Cavendish when attacking ability as well. So he is my 2k counter of choice. Other options are Sanji and Jinbei. I think they are pretty reasonable as well, but personally, because I feel that the deck really needs to aggro and end games quickly, this is probably the best 2k counter option in my opinion. Now, we are also running 3 Rush Zoros. So we're only running 3 because we've also added the Kid and Killer into the deck, and we don't want to run too many no counter cards. I think that's going to be a very big aspect of the deck, where right now you see there's quite a few bricks on it already. There's of course the Choppers and the Beiges, the Laws, the Zoros, the Kid and Killers. There are a few more coming up as well. But I do like the card because of the amount of pressure you can apply using this, as well as the Rush with the Restand Law, playing it down, with the Blocker Law, playing it down after bouncing a Nami or a Bonnie or a Chopper or anything like that, and getting some additional pressure in. Of course, Rush is always a good keyword. It's very, very powerful in being able to put on the pressure, especially early game, because again, Kid and Killer is only active after your opponent's at 2 life. So getting there will be with Rush Zoro to push them down to that 2 life threshold. Other than that, we're also running a couple of one-offs, of course, but I think we'll cover that a bit later. Let's talk a little bit more about 1-cost red options that we're running. Staple 1-cost red card is going to be, of course, Otama. She is at 3 in my current deck list. 1 cost on play, give one of your opponent's characters minus 2k power. This is really powerful in helping you to clear your opponent's boards, especially with cards like Dadan and Brook, which usually aren't very easy to attack with. By reducing your opponent's power, you're able to swing into 5k bodies or 6k bodies a lot easier, and that puts a lot of pressure on your opponent as well. When they're trying to protect their board, they'll have to give up more hand, or they'll have to give up their board more easily as well. We're also running 3 copies of Makino. Makino is really good for pushing surprise lethals. If you've seen my one TikTok about it. There was a game where I was able to push Otama up to 18,000 power thanks to Makino, and using Makino very cleverly with both blocker law as well as shambles and my leader effect as well. So Makino, I feel, is really really strong in helping you to push lethal, especially if you have like a board of multiple 1-cost. You're able to use the Makino a couple of different times, or you have multiple Makinos in hand. This will give you a lot of pressure that your opponent may not be able to expect with just like what's on your board or what kind of Dawn you have available. And then the last 1-cost we are running is the 1-cost Nico Robin. On play, KO a 1k power or lower character. This is really powerful when it comes to dealing with again, cheap blockers. Like, I mean, there's probably not going to be any mirrors, but in the mirror you first can clear these 1-cost blockers. When you're playing against RP Law, you're able to clear Bonk Clay, and most importantly against Sakazuki, against black decks in general, you're able to clear the Rebecca for free off of this. So it's a really really powerful card. It gives you a lot of extra tempo, and again, because your game plan is really aggro phase, having the ability to clear these chump blockers that could eat a 7k attack is really going to be quite significant as well. On top of that, of course, it's just additional 1-cost as well as additional Straw Hat targets. So this is both searchable of Dadan and the Nami, which is pretty big. And again, it's additional Makino targets as well. So you're able to push for lethal a bit harder if you have an additional like Nami or Robin on the board, assuming like you run out of your Namis. That's basically the core of the deck. There's a couple of other one-offs that, being me, I always run a couple of one-offs in my decks. So first off, I wanted to talk about the 5-cost Rush Luffy. I think this card will always be a really strong finisher in this deck because of the ability to, for one, again, restand it with the restand law. So you're gonna get up to 2 unblockable swings. And I mean, if technically you're really desperate, you can go up to 3 unblockable swings with it if your board is full enough. So it really helps to deal with decks that block up a lot. Try to hide behind like multiple Rebeccas or Borsalinos or Salvos or things like that. Assuming again that of course it gets to stick on the board. And this is best used of course when you're able to push your opponent to 0 life, and then after that you can shambles it in for cheaper. It also works really well with Brook because of course you can put Dawn on the Luffy and then restand it, and shambles the Brook out and restand it, or you can also use it to put the Brook and attach 2 Rested Dawn to the Luffy, shambles it out, swing with the Cavendish, and then once you've shambles out the Brook, you have that 2 Dawn to restand with the Cavendish as well. So again, it allows you to apply really a lot of pressure on your opponent. In general, like this entire deck, it just allows you to apply a lot of pressure using Dawn very efficiently, using more characters and flooding the board, and of course protecting these characters with your cheap blockers in order to maintain that pressure. And the searchers also help to maintain your hand size to keep protecting those blockers for you. So we're also running 1 Radical Beam. I think Radical Beam is a really good one-off because it always takes your opponents by surprise. Generally people aren't playing around it in most situations, and of course 4k counter for 1 card is really really strong. I think people tend to forget about how efficient the card is, and I guess since red isn't that popular now, people will also forget to play around it sometimes. Of course it's also searchable off of Nami. It's additional counter. The one thing I don't like is that of course it's an event, so you can't play it down on the board, which is why I'm only running 1 copy as well. But I think it's a really really strong one-off. It really helps to protect your characters on the board. It helps to protect your face if your opponent is going for lethal. Okay, last 2 one-offs. First off is 8-cost Kid. I still really really like this card. I think especially in the current meta, even though it is still Sakazuki focused, being able to play it down as an 8-cost and then after that using its effect to bring down a 3-cost, it is actually still a bit of a challenge, I would say, to remove both a 8-cost and a 3-cost. And if you're able to hide behind this against decks like Yellow, even against Moria will have a relatively difficult time getting rid of this without Ice Age and Lucci and Tsuru. Like Ice Age Moria will be able to clear this, but otherwise it's going to be actually a bit of a tough time. Against decks like BY Luffy, against decks like even RP Law will have a tough-ish time to get rid of this. It's a really really strong card, and it really helps to again keep yourself healthy and protect your hand size, which is the most important part of like having cards like this, where it's not really about protecting your hand your board or your face that much, but it's really about making sure your hand size is healthy, because hand size is options for RG Law. Because hand size is options for RG Law, so having more hand is having more things that you can do next turn. And that's one of the reasons why I love the deck so much, because it really gives you a lot of options to play around. Alright, one other thing of course is A-Cross Kit now, especially with the new Cavendish, is really powerful. If you're able to drop down Cavendish on your 6 Dawn turn, like I mentioned, and then from there you drop down A-Cross Kit, you're able to restand Dawn and Shambles, and also you're able to either restand Dawn and Shambles, or restand Dawn and put Dawn on the kit, which is really good. So I'll give you an example of like a giga high roll curve later, but it is pretty nasty, I would have to say. Alright, and the last one off that I have, I think, is also a pretty strong card, which is the 9-cost SCC Zoro. I think this card is surprisingly strong. The main reason is that if you're playing the deck in a way where you can stay healthy by using your blockers early and you can drop this down, it's actually a very difficult card to remove at 9 cost. You need at least 2 reduction cards for most decks to clear it. So for example, Moria would need Ice Age Tsuru or Hina Helmeppo or something like that in order to get rid of it. That's one. Number 2 is, if they don't get rid of it, it's a lot of pressure. So you can of course use the 2-cost Brook on it to attach Dawn to it and then continue doing your Shambles shenanigans still. For 2, with Cavendish, this gives even more value in terms of like, you're able to attack, then after that restand the 2 Dawn that you used to use the activate main effect, and then attach that 2 Dawn back to the Zoro. So it's really strong as well. It's really good against NL. It helps to clear that 3 life in general. Against yellow in general, it's very hard to clear this card. I mean, NL has Kingdom Come, Raigo, but other than that, it's not an easy card to remove by any means. So I quite like the card. I think it's also searchable only off of Nami, sadly, because it does not have the Supernova type, but it's still pretty strong, and I quite like the card. It's only at 1 because it can get very bricky. It's very hard to play down a 9-cost character in this deck. But if you're able to play this down while you have Cavendish on board, you can still use Shambles to protect it, protect your board even more, protect your face even more as well. And that gives you a lot of pressure in the coming turns, because 9k, 9k, 9k is a lot of stats and a lot of counter that you need to, you know, drop from hand in order to protect yourself. So I quite like the card. I think it's not bad. It's a pretty good addition to RG Law in general, because of the fact that it is that one boss finisher monster that you kind of rely on if you run out of steam, if you run out of searches, if you run out of your blocker laws and stuff like that. So this is basically the deck list, I would say, for EB01. I think it's pretty decent. End of the day, it's still going to struggle into Sakazuki. It's still going to struggle into removal based decks like that. 4-cost Lucci is going to be a pain in the ass. But I actually think the matchup spread for this is not that bad. Other than the fact that Sakazuki and Apilo are really bad matchups, I think Moria is pretty decent actually. Because of the fact that you want to empty your hand anyway, so Perona rarely gets any value. If they burn Epsilons early on the searchers, that's pretty good for you as well. Most of the cards being at 5 cost means that Tsuru and Great Eruption are not enough to clear any of these with Epsilon. They would have to invest a Helmet Bowl, they would have to invest 2 reduction cards or something like that as well. So reduction cards, they'll need an additional reduction card, they'll need Hina, they'll need Helmet Bowl, or they'll need 2 Eruptions, which is a pretty good investment, I think, if you can get them to burn so much for one of your characters like that. And in general, the amount of aggro that you're pushing is pretty decent. Being able to Otama and smack into their 5k bodies with your Dadans and your Namis is also pretty significant as well. So I quite like, I think, the odds this deck has into the Moria. I think BY Luffy is actually pretty decent as well. It's kind of like the RP Law into BY Luffy matchup, where you set like 5 active cards and then keep them above that 2 life or 1 life threshold, so that you can push all in at 1 turn while they are still on 5k base. And A-Cost Kid is really good into that matchup as well, because they just don't have the answer into it. Plus, because you have so many chump blockers, even though they are swinging 11k at you, it's kind of just, okay, 11k swing, here's 1 choppy boy, and then that's, we're calling it a day. So I think that BY Luffy matchup is pretty decent. Karakuri is still a decent matchup. NL is okay. I think it could be bad if they decide to starve you. I'm not running Sanji despite that, because I think I rather just run Zoro. And then if I drop Zoro, the NL doesn't have an answer, he just loses on the spot as well. But yeah, this is the deck basically. I quite like it. I think I have a lot of fun playing it still, even though it's not that playable. It's still my favorite deck to play, and I will continue to play it. let me tell you a little bit about the new curves that you can run now that Cavendish is in the deck. And I think most of this explanation will be focused on Cavendish because I did explain like how to play Argilo in general before. But let's quickly do that. Hello, post edit hero here. I realized this deck has 51 cards, so definitely cut one of those cards so that you have a legal deck. I think you can cut either one of the one-offs, or you can cut one Rush Zoro, or you can cut maybe one Cavendish, I guess. But that's probably what I would suggest, so that you can keep the deck legal. Yeah. Anyway, back to the video. So usually when I'm doing like these curve tutorials, I'm doing them like oh, here's 1 Dawn, here's 3 Dawn, here's 5 Dawn. But because Argilo is like a deck that goes really wide, it plays a lot of characters, I think it's easier to just show you like a sequential kind of perfect curve. So when we're looking at going second, which is what you should usually choose if you're winning the dice roll, what we're looking to do for this best play is we're looking for Blocker Law and Cavendish starting hand. We're also looking for Namis. We're looking for other 1 cost. Dadan is also alright. Zoro is also pretty good. So let's say in this scenario we have 1-1, 2-1 as our starting hand, right? So we're gonna drop both Namis first. Let's say we pick up like a Zoro and a Chopper, right? And that's gonna be our first turn. On 4, you want to make sure that you have at least 4 characters on the board, and you want to have one cost character in hand. So let's just say we have this extra 1 cost. If we have that, we want to drop two characters here. So a 3 and a 1. Then we pass our turn, and this sets us up for a very, very powerful 6 Dawn turn. So that turn is going to be spend 5 on Cavendish and set 2 Dawn active. And then if one of your board got removed, you can play down another 1 cost over it. If not, you can just use your leader effect with the Dawn that Cavendish has given you. Let's pretend maybe you got another Zoro. You can return Nami to hand, like one of your 1 cost to hand, play down Blocker Law, and then you can play down a second Zoro here. So this is a giga high roll. Like, it's a really really strong opener. It's probably the best possible opener you can get. This is a 6 Dawn turn board. So on the 6 Dawn turn, your board is 5-5-3-3. It's 16 Dawn worth of characters already, which is crazy. Like not a single other deck can do this much pressure on 6 Dawn. Of course, Apilo will probably be able to remove some of your board such that you don't get such a big combo, or like Lucci will also remove your board. But if you're high rolling, this is how you high roll. And of course, I think I mentioned very briefly earlier as well, if you have 8 cost Kate on this 8 Dawn turn, you can play him down, use his effect to play down something else. And if you even have Restand Law here, you can swing with the Cavendish, set 2 Dawn active, use your leader effect, drop Dawn, return something, play the Restand Law, set the Cavendish active, and then attack again, set 2 more Dawn active, and now you can put 1 on the kit on your 8 Dawn turn. So on an 8 Dawn turn, having a board like this is also very crazy. Like, it's really strong. So Cavendish in general really applies a lot of pressure and also enables you to make a lot of different plays that are very powerful in general. So really strong card that just made a very significant addition to the deck. Of course, after this, when you're able to put your opponent at 2 life, having the ability to swing 7 with Kick Killer and then restand it and swing 9 again is also very powerful, because you're getting 4 Dawn value for free basically, off of a 4 cost unit. Like 9k is a standard stat line for a 7 cost unit, so being able to get that off of a 4 cost body with Rush is really powerful as well. Of course, this is the giga high roll and you're not gonna get this every game, but I think at the end of the day, as long as you're able to get Cavendish as well as another 5 cost out on the 6 Dawn turn, that's going to be a very powerful turn. Even if, let's say, your board looks something like this on 6 Dawn, I think this is really powerful still, because usually your board will only look something like this, which is okay. It's relatively strong, but it's not super strong, you know. But if you're able to have this out, something like this out on your 6 Dawn turn, I think it's really powerful. Now, assuming you're going first, Cavendish is going to be one of the key cards that you have in your deck. So is a pretty simple curve actually going first. You're gonna go 1 3 5, so it's probably going to be Nami Searcher into 3 Dawn turn, where you play either the Zoro, or you can play Nami and Dadan for 3, both of which are pretty decent. And then generally for 5, if you're able to, of course, play like another 1 cost and 2 costs to shambles on 5. That's strong. So let's say we found another chopper or a brook or something, and we can shambles again. We can shambles here on the 5 Dawn turn. But if not, it's pretty strong to just play down Cavendish and then attach 2 and slam 7 as well, or to play another character here. So 5 Dawn turn, we're usually looking to place down the Cavendish and establish that, because that means your next turn, where you have 7 Dawn, suddenly you have a lot of options. So rather than having 7 Dawn, think about it as having 9 Dawn total to play with because of the Cavendish. And if you have Restand Law in hand, that can be as much as 11 Dawn on your 7 Dawn turn too. So you can even hard cast the Restand Law here after attacking with the Cavendish. So let's say we spend 2 Dawn on something, maybe like a Zoro. We'll spend 3 Dawn on the Zoro. Then we can attack for 6 with the Cavendish, stand 2 Dawn. We can hard cast the Restand Law, stand the Cavendish, and then after that we have 1 Dawn active, we attack again, we restand 2 Dawn, and then we can shambles again, and we can play something else. So hard casting Restand Law on Cavendish is also pretty strong. Like, just the amount of Dawn that you can get and the amount of efficiency that you get with this Cavendish makes the deck pretty powerful in terms of aggression in the early game. The main thing, of course, is that being green and red, the deck's main issue is always going to be removal, making sure that your board is able to stick, because when it's not able to stick, it just really struggles. In 07, they have created the green 5 cost Luffy card, which is not bad, but I think it's pretty hard to fit in, and it doesn't do that great into cards like Sakazuki, but it does protect you against most other forms of reduction plus removal, because 5 cost Luffy affects current cost, not total cost, which is pretty strong as well. So I think in 07 that card existing is decent help, but again, it's still going to be difficult because the meta decks are Lucci and Apilor, so those are not very good matchups for this deck at all. That being said, I really still love the deck. I really hope they make more good support for it. I think the one thing it really needs is more protection, like focus cards. For example, Pickles for the Foxy Pirates is a really good card, and I wish they would print something like that for Argilor. And if they do, then I think the deck is probably going to be playable again. But I really hope that they do print that, and I'm really excited for any more support that they do come up with. In the meantime, I think Cavendish is a really good step in the right direction, but I think it's just not enough at the moment to match up with cards like Moria, 10 cost Ace, cards that give so much value to the deck. Now, that being said, thank you friendos and randos for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I love this deck a lot, and I really hope that you are able to, I guess, play the deck for fun and maybe bring it to your locals if you really enjoy it too. Of course, winning isn't everything. Winning is fun, but if you enjoy playing decks that you enjoy, play your decks and, you know, go and have fun. Personally, I'm competitive, so I want to play decks that give me the best chance at winning, which is why I'm really sad that I can't play this deck anymore, because I really loved playing Argilor in OPO4 and OPO3. I had a lot of fun playing it and winning with it, and I felt like when I was playing this deck, I felt like I could win because I was better than my opponents, and not just because I drew better than my opponents, if you guys get what I'm saying. But it is what it is. That's kind of how the game has evolved in the moment, and I still love One Piece. I still will continue to play it, and I hope you guys do too, and I guess that's why you're watching my videos too. And if you do, then again, I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you friendos and randos. Peace out.